Literally every day I open up my phone or my computer, I see an advertisement for some sort of recovery footwear. And it seems like every single brand has some sort of recovery footwear now. It's just become like the buzzword. But the thing is, there are a lot of misconceptions about recovery, especially in the lower extremity. And number one, do you actually need it? What are the biggest marketing lies people are telling you? And if it does benefit you, what is the best sort of structure, foam configuration? What is the best actually attributes of recovery footwear that'll actually allow you to recover? It might not be what you think. Let's get into it. All right, let's start with lie number one. And that is, in recovery footwear, softer is better. It's actually kind of the opposite. I'm not gonna call out any specific brands. You can kind of just check them yourself when you actually go to buy them. But when a piece of recovery footwear is too soft, whether that be a shoe or a sandal or a clog, it actually allows more motion. And when you get more motion in the joints here, these joints are moving around more. Now, what stabilizes joints? Ligaments, but also muscles. So when recovery footwear is too soft and you're walking around in it, that means now that all these muscles in your leg now have to work harder to stabilize the foot. Now, what are you trying to recover after activity, right? Your muscles are fatigued, your foot's fatigued, right? You're feeling sore and tired. So when you go and put something soft on, yeah, it might feel good to the skin and the skin surface nerve receptors, right? But, or the sensory nerves, but to all these muscles here on the bottom of your foot, going up your leg, even up here into the upper leg, all these muscles now are having to stabilize more. Versus in something like, let's say, Crocs, which have been kind of, around forever, right? But versus something like these where the foam, yeah, it's just EVA with some waterproofing, but it is just a little bit more dense, a little bit wider. These do not toggle around when you walk in them. They stay pretty stable. And so then all the muscles in your leg don't have to work overtime. So if your recovery footwear has the consistency of a Squishmallow toy, just know that, yeah, it might feel good to the skin, but it might not feel great to the actual muscles you are trying to recover. Now, if you're just sitting around on a bench or something, just kind of taking it easy on the couch, it doesn't matter. Wear whatever you want. You want the softest thing on the planet, get the softest thing on the planet. But if you actually are gonna be walking around doing anything when you are upright with that sandal, clog, or shoe, make sure it at least has some sort of density to it. I like to think of something like in the Crocs EVA family, Nike Cushlon, injection molded Phylon, or kind of like what we have here in our recovery sandal. Yes, I got one too. Something like a dual density foam where you have a little bit of a softer foam on top, a little more resilient, and then on the bottom you have something more akin to a more dense EVA. All right, so lie number two about recovery footwear is that you should be in barefoot shoes or just go barefoot for recovery. Now, for a lot of people, it's great if you have more of a neutral foot, or even sometimes a little bit of a higher arched foot, a more anatomic toe box shoe, maybe some denser foam in there, actually would be a really great thing. Except if you're somebody with maybe a hypermobile flat foot, someone with some very loose ligaments, somebody that after a lot of exercise really needs that foot to be cradled a little bit more. In terms of barefoot footwear, like I said, a lot of people love it. I personally like it just because I have a pretty wide foot. I like my toes to just kind of spread out after I work out. So I don't mind it, especially in some of the better barefoot shoes, like some of the higher stacked Altras, or not barefoot, but anatomic shoes. I really enjoy that. Some people do like to go barefoot afterwards. I've seen a lot of people take their shoes and socks off and just let their foot stretch out. And like I said, that is great for people that have all functioning ligaments, more neutral feet, maybe a little bit of flat foot there, but nothing hypermobile. If you have hypermobility, you get tired feet because your feet are splaying too crazily, you have really bad flat foot, you need orthotics. If you're trying to recover after exercise, remember you're using an orthotic for a reason, right? Because your foot needs a little bit more support because the ligaments aren't doing it themselves. And so you can train the muscles in your feet all you want. It's still not gonna replace a ligament, right? So that's why people with chronic ankle instability still can get ankle sprains even if they train the muscles, because ligaments and muscles just work a little bit differently. So for a lot of people, yeah, barefoot or anatomic shoes are great, or just going barefoot is great, but not for everybody. So just make sure hypermobility syndromes, really just unstable flat feet, you're gonna wanna be in something probably that cradles you more than allows you to splay, because the splaying is kind of your problem. Now the next lie is on the opposite end of that spectrum. A lot of people see rocker bottom shoes and think these are the answer. I see wearing these all the time. Now yeah, rocker bottoms do not make you use nearly as much energy to walk as a standard shoe because they rock. They have a little bit of a radius here, and so it just kind of promotes easier gliding. The problem with that is it can lead to equinus, which is artificially shortening of your Achilles tendon. So then after you get out of these shoes, then you gotta stretch again. Now, for people that have really bad forefoot pain, and you wanna, I think these are great for recovery. And for short bursts of time, I think they're fine, especially people, like I said, with ball of foot pain, I think these are really nice for. It's just that you don't wanna get into too big of a habit with these unless you do have, you know, end-stage arthritis in the forefoot, things that really prohibit you, right? This is more of sometimes a therapeutic shoe versus a recovery shoe for people with really debilitating forefoot arthritis. You know, things like that, or like knee issues to where they can't bend, like where they actually need a rocker sole. That's a whole different video. But if you are gonna use these afterwards, like I said, I think it's fine if you're trying to brace other things in your foot. Just make sure afterwards you are giving your Achilles a nice, slow, deliberate stretch. That way you don't artificially shorten it. And the next biggest lie or myth about recovery footwear kind of brings a lot of these together, and that's that it's your foot that needs recovering the most. Yes, I mean, you've got muscles on the bottom of your foot, you got muscle on the top of your foot, but a lot of what governs your foot function is actually in the leg. These muscles then create the tendons that are inside your foot. So it's really the leg that is the main thing that needs recovered. So like I said, it kind of brings all this together. You don't want something overly soft that's gonna make the leg toggle back and forth or put artificial stress on the knee. You know, you don't wanna create tightness in the Achilles or the hamstrings with something that's too much of a rocker bottom, right? You don't wanna send shock up the leg by going barefoot if you've got hypermobile flat foot, or especially if you're too high of an arch and you've got artificial shock. Now, I can't do this video without telling you about why I made mine the way I did, and that is to kind of fix what's going on in the leg too, or not fix, but recover what's going on in the leg, because that's another lie about recovery footwear. It's not fixing anything, right? It's not therapeutic. Rocker bottoms can be therapeutic for some things, but you're just trying to let your body recover itself. The footwear is not doing anything. It's just allowing your body to recover. That's why when we made the Xenon Zen, mine, we made it with a more flat bottom. That's why it's a little bit more, you know, geometric, right, instead of circular, so that it stays more stable on the ground. There's also a carbon fiber X plate in ours, not because carbon fiber does anything magical. That's another lie about recovery footwear, that all carbon fiber is gonna solve everything. A lot of times carbon fibers actually can be detrimental. The only reason I put really two very, very thin bands of it is to keep the heel from slapping you back in the heel. That's the only reason we put it in there. It wasn't anything magical or that carbon fiber is gonna do anything crazy. It was just to make it more comfortable on liftoff. The other thing is, a lot of times you see recovery footwear, like I said, too soft, shock up the leg. That's why we put TPEE on the top, with more of an energy returning super shoe foam, and then just pretty lightweight but dense enough EVA on the outside to allow these things to stay stable so you're not toggling. And before I get to the last myth or lie, if you do want to check out the Xenon Zen recovery slide, the one that I helped design, I'll leave that link in the description below. Okay, but getting into the last myth or lie about recovery footwear, and this just might hose the whole video, I don't know. But the last myth or lie is that you need it in the first place. Now, yes, a recovery sandal does allow airflow, right? So you're gonna get airflow through there, but what a lot of people do is just loosen up the laces, bring a change of socks and some foot powder to, you know, keep your foot dry so it's not sweating like crazy, and just walk around with your shoe with the laces open so that your foot can splay a little bit and your foot, you know, has some room to swell. Especially if you get a shoe with boa closure, right? You know, you can just open up the boa and there you go. Now, if you're in a super shoe, that's a completely different story. So in terms of running, yeah, you probably want something different to recover, and especially if you're in more of a racer. You know, if you have your daily trainer, you can just bring that too. Yeah, you're gonna get some heel slippage in there, but if you don't feel like spending the money on a sandal or a clog or a recovery slide, or you just forgot them that day, just as long as you have a spare pair of socks and foot powder and you can open up the laces, or you get a boa closure shoe, you'd be just fine. Yeah, a dedicated piece of recovery footwear is nice. You know, it's nice to have, especially for airing out of your feet, right, and just allowing your toes to move around. But if you don't have one, loosening up the laces can be just fine. If the shoe is good enough to play basketball, tennis, or pickleball in on a super hot day on asphalt, cement, or concrete, it's probably good for your drive home. So just remember that if you don't have one, don't feel like you're missing out. You have to spend money that you don't feel like spending. You can't just get away with some powder, new pair of socks, and loosening up the laces. So with all that being said, I'd love to know what you recover in. Do you go barefoot? Do you do Crocs? Hey, do you got my Xenon Zen slide? Do you use a rocker? Let me know in the comments down below kind of what your routine has been, because a lot of people have a lot of different ones. And in the comments section of these videos, a lot of times you can really find some really nuggets of gold in terms of what other people are doing maybe with your specific foot type. And if you do want to see the teardown of the Xenon Zen slide, I'll leave that link in the description below. It is kind of, it's basically just a brain dump of what I think about recovery. Even if you have zero intention of buying these or any other recovery footwear right now, it's good to have it kind of in your brain when you are looking at some point in the future for recovery footwear. It would just kind of give you kind of a roadmap of what to look for and kind of pitfalls for your own particular foot. So if you want to check that out, I'll leave that linked right here, and make sure you subscribe down below. I'll see you in the next video.